She walked into her final battle alone, reaches its dramatic apex when Mara confronts Dr. Marlowe, the human-machine hybrid controlling the poisonous rain. As Mara hesitates before this technological abomination, Reese's voice emerges one final time from beyond death. Trust the planet that bore us. Trust yourself. With newfound clarity, Mara severs Marlowe's neural connections, choosing mercy while reclaiming humanity's future. Retry Claude can make mistakes. Please double-check responses. The acid rain fell like liquid fire from the black sky, each droplet burning small craters into the crystallized soil. Captain Mara Velasquez pulled her reinforced hood lower, squinting through the specialized visor that protected her eyes from both the caustic downpour and the poisonous mist that rose where the acid met earth. 3 years of guerrilla warfare had taught her to move swiftly through this dying world. But tonight, she moved differently, more deliberately, with a purpose that transcended mere survival. She was alone, the last member of Squad 7, the sole survivor. Mara's gloved fingers brushed against the worn patch on her shoulder, tracing the numeral and the faded insignia beneath it. Once, there had been 12 of them, 12 soldiers fighting against impossible odds to restore their poisoned planet. Now, only their memory remained, carried in the heart of the woman who had led them. Her boots crunched on blackened soil as she crested a ridge, the specialized material of her combat suit protecting her from the toxic environment. Below, through gaps in the acid storm, she could make out the skeletal remains of what had once been a forest. Beyond that lay her destination, the rain control nexus, disguised as an abandoned communications hub, but housing the technology that had turned the sky into a weapon. Mara checked her wrist display, the holographic readout confirming what her instincts already knew. She was being followed, not by humans, but by automated drones programmed to detect movement in this no-man's land. She ducked behind a crystallized tree trunk, its once living wood now transformed into a brittle, glassy substance by years of chemical exposure. As she waited for the drone to pass, Mara's thoughts drifted to Leo. Everyone had called him Reese, a nickname derived from his middle name. Her partner, her confidant, her... She pushed the thought away. 3 months had passed since the canyon ambush, since she had watched him fall into the acid-filled ravine after pushing her to safety. His final words echoed in her memory. "Live for both of us now, Captain." Why had she been spared when Reese fell? The question haunted her waking hours and poisoned her dreams. The drone hummed past, its sensors sweeping the area in eerie blue light. Once it disappeared into the storm, Mara continued her journey, each step bringing her closer to what she believed would be her final mission. It had been 2 weeks since she discovered Reese's final gift, a data pack hidden in a secret compartment of her tactical gear. She still remembered the shock of finding it, of hearing his voice for the first time since his death as the recorded message played. "If you're watching this, Captain, then I've probably done something heroically stupid," Reese's familiar voice had said, a sad smile audible in his tone. "But I didn't leave you without a plan. I've been mapping the rain control nexus for months. Entry points, weak spots, security protocols. It's all here." The data pack contained detailed maps, hand-drawn by Reese, recorded messages explaining his findings, and a meticulously crafted plan to destroy the facility that controlled the poisonous rainfall, the heart of the enemy's ecological warfare system. One person could do it, he had explained in the recording. One person with the right information and the right skills. Someone like you, Mara. She had cried then, for the first time since his death. Not just from grief, but from a bittersweet gratitude. Even in death, Reese was fighting alongside her, guiding her toward what might be their greatest victory, or her noble end. Now, as she navigated the wasteland, Mara followed Reese's hand-drawn maps with religious precision. They were more than directions. They were his final communication, his way of reaching out from beyond death. Each landmark he had noted, a distinctive rock formation, the ruins of a pre-war structure, a cluster of acid sinkholes, served as both navigational aid and painful reminder of his absence. The storm intensified, forcing Mara to seek shelter beneath a collapsed highway overpass. The concrete, though corroded by years of acid exposure, still offered some protection. She used the opportunity to check her equipment, sword and shield, high-tech adaptations of ancient weapons, designed for combat in environments where conventional firearms would malfunction due to chemical interference, breather mask for areas where the air itself was toxic, explosive charges for the mission's final phase. As she waited for the storm to subside, Mara activated another of Reese's recordings from the data pack. "Remember that time in the northern sector?" his voice began. And despite everything, Mara found herself smiling. "When we found that underground spring that somehow hadn't been contaminated? You said it was like finding a dream in the middle of a nightmare." The memory surfaced vividly. The unexpected joy of discovering clean water. How they had removed their masks for just a moment to taste it. How Reese had laughed when a droplet clung to her eyelash like a tear. "I think about that spring sometimes," the recording continued. "How something pure can survive even in the most poisoned place. That's what you are in this world, Mara. That's what you've always been." The message ended, leaving Mara in silence, broken only by the hiss of acid on stone above. Her chest tightened with a familiar ache, grief mingled with something deeper, something she had never found the courage to name while Reese was alive. When the storm temporarily abated, she continued her journey. The terrain grew more treacherous as she approached the facility, not just from natural hazards, but from deliberate ones. The enemy had seeded the surrounding area with flesh-eroding moss that could burn through protective clothing in minutes, and hidden acid pits camouflaged to appear as solid ground. But Reese had anticipated these dangers too. His maps marked safe passages with uncanny accuracy, as if he had walked this path himself, though Mara knew he never had. His intelligence network had been extensive, his attention to detail unmatched. "The moss fields begin 3 kilometers from the north entrance." His notes read, "Follow the line of white crystallized trees. They form a natural path through the contamination." As night fell, the acid rain briefly ceased, revealing a sky devoid of stars, obscured by toxic clouds that never dispersed. In this eerie twilight, Mara finally caught sight of her target, the rain control nexus. Once a communications hub connecting this region to the world, the sprawling facility had been repurposed into something monstrous, a weapon that poisoned the very atmosphere, designed to break the will of the resistance by making their world uninhabitable. Its central tower rose like a malevolent spine against the blackened sky, surrounded by smaller structures that pumped chemicals into specially designed cloud-seeding machines. Mara activated her tactical visor's enhanced view, scanning for entry points. According to Reese's intelligence, the North Maintenance Tunnel offered the best chance of infiltration, minimal security, maximum structural access. She would need to disable the automated defenses, reach the central control room, and plant explosives at key structural points. As she approached the perimeter, moving silently through shadows, Mara reflected on how far they had come in their resistance, and how far they still had to go. The authority that had turned against its own people, weaponizing the environment itself, was the same government that had once promised to protect them. The betrayal had been slow, insidious, until one day the rain began to burn and the resistance was born. The maintenance tunnel entrance was exactly where Reese's map indicated, partially concealed by debris and apparently abandoned. Too easy, Mara thought, her soldier's instincts immediately suspicious. She scanned for traps, finding subtle evidence of pressure plates beneath the scattered rubble. Another of Reese's recordings provided guidance. "They've mined the north tunnel entrance, but there's a pattern to the placement. Fifth plate from the left is a dummy. No connection to the explosive mechanism. That's your safe entry point. Following his instructions, Mara carefully navigated the minefield, placing each foot exactly where Reese had indicated was safe. When she reached the tunnel entrance itself, she found it sealed by a reinforced door with an electronic lock. The code changes weekly, Reese's notes explained, but the system has a hardware vulnerability. 3 rapid pulses from an electromagnetic disruptor at the junction box on the right will force a reset to factory settings. Code 7734. Mara extracted a small device from her equipment pouch, aimed it at the indicated panel, and activated it. 3 pulses of invisible energy later, the lock panel flickered and reset. She entered the code, and with a satisfying click, the door unlocked. Before entering, she touched the worn patch on her shoulder once more. A ritual, a prayer, a promise to those who had fallen. Then, she slipped into the darkness of the facility that had poisoned her world. The maintenance tunnel stretched before her, dimly lit by emergency lighting that cast everything in a sickly green glow. The air here was cleaner than outside, filtered for the benefit of the facility's workers, allowing Mara to remove her breather mask temporarily. She moved cautiously, aware that while Reese's intelligence was extensive, it couldn't account for recent changes in security protocols. As she progressed deeper into the facility, Mara encountered the first signs of active occupation. Freshly maintained equipment, surveillance cameras, which she carefully avoided, and the distant hum of machinery. According to the facility schematics in Reese's data pack, she would need to navigate through 3 levels of maintenance tunnels before reaching the central control hub. The first level proved straightforward. Service corridors used primarily by automated maintenance drones, which Mara easily evaded by timing her movements to their predictable patrol patterns. The second level, however, presented a new challenge: chemical traps designed to release paralytic gas if triggered. They installed the gas dispensers after we infiltrated their western facility, Reese's recording explained. But there's a design flaw. The sensors can't distinguish between human heat signatures and concentrated heat from other sources. Following his guidance, Mara activated a thermal decoy device, tossing it ahead of her to trigger the sensors. The traps discharged their payloads harmlessly, while she held her breath and sprinted past, the specialized filters in her suit protecting her from residual exposure. As she descended to the third level, the facility's architecture changed noticeably. The utilitarian corridors gave way to more complex chambers, processing units for the chemicals pumped into the atmosphere, diagnostic stations monitoring weather patterns, and terminals displaying data on rainfall acidity levels across different regions. Mara paused at one such terminal, her heart sinking as she absorbed the information. The areas marked in red, regions where the acid rain was most concentrated, corresponded exactly with known resistance strongholds. They were being systematically poisoned out of existence. With renewed determination, she continued toward the core maintenance tunnels, the final approach to the control hub. According to Reese's intelligence, this area should be minimally guarded, relying primarily on automated defenses rather than human personnel. But as she rounded a corner, Mara came face to face with something Reese hadn't predicted: a human guard in full tactical gear, weapon raised. "Hold," the guard commanded, voice distorted by their mask. "Identify yourself." Mara froze, calculating her options. Her hand drifted toward her sword, but before she could draw it, the guard reached up and removed their mask. "Mara, is that really you?" The face beneath the mask belonged to Vey, once a member of Squad 3, now apparently working for the enemy. Recognition gave way to shock, then something like shame in Vey's eyes. "What are you doing here, Vey?" Mara asked, her voice low and dangerous. "Wearing their uniform, protecting their poison factory." Vey lowered their weapon slightly. "You don't understand. After the southern shelter fell, they gave us a choice: Cooperation or execution? I chose to live. To live as their tool, Mara said, unable to keep the contempt from her voice. To live to fight another day, Vey countered. Some of us are working from the inside. Mara, gathering intelligence, sabotaging when we can. It's not as simple as you think. For a moment, Mara wavered. Could Vey be telling the truth? Was there a resistance cell operating within the facility itself? But then she remembered Reese's fall, the acid eating through his protective gear as he plummeted into the canyon, and her resolve hardened. Step aside, Vey. I have a mission to complete. Vey's expression shifted, resignation replacing defensiveness. I can't let you pass, Captain. Whatever you're planning, they'll just rebuild. They always do. And more people will die for nothing. Not this time, Mara said. This isn't a sabotage mission. I'm going to bring the whole system down. Understanding dawned in Vey's eyes, followed by alarm. The entire facility. Mara, there are people here, not just soldiers, but technicians, maintenance workers, people like me who had no choice. There's always a choice, Mara said, drawing her sword, a marvel of engineering, its edge capable of cutting through most materials despite its seemingly traditional design. Mine is to end this now. Vey raised their own weapon, a similar blade, standard issue for tunnel guards where firearms could cause catastrophic damage to sensitive equipment. Then, I have to stop you. What followed was a dance of death in the confined space of the maintenance tunnel. Sword against sword, shield against shield. Both warriors were evenly matched, trained in the same combat techniques, familiar with each other's styles from joint exercises in the past. Vey fought with the desperation of someone defending not just their life, but their justifications, their compromises. Mara fought with the cold precision of someone who had already accepted their own death as the likely outcome of their mission. The clash of their blades echoed through the tunnel, sparks flying where the technologically enhanced edges met. Vey was stronger, but Mara was quicker, using the confined space to her advantage, forcing her opponent into defensive positions. You're fighting for the wrong side, Mara grunted as their blades locked. There are no sides anymore, Vey responded, breaking the lock with a powerful push. Just survivors. The fight continued, both combatants sustaining minor injuries, a slice across Mara's arm, a gash on Vey's leg. Fatigue began to set in, movements becoming less precise, reactions slowing by crucial milliseconds. Then, Vey made a critical error, overextending on a thrust that Mara sidestepped. In the moment of imbalance that followed, Mara struck with the flat of her blade, knocking Vey against the tunnel wall with enough force to momentarily stun them. Mara raised her sword for the final strike, its edge poised at Vey's throat. Their eyes met, former comrades, now on opposite sides of a war that had consumed everything. Do it, Vey whispered. At least I'll die with a clean conscience, not poisoned from the inside out like the rest of us. Mara's hand trembled, the sword edge unwavering at Vey's throat. She thought of Reese, of his sacrifice, of the mission she had to complete. Just then, a crackle of static came from her wrist pad, the device that contained Reese's data. To her shock, his voice emerged, crystal clear, as if he were standing beside her. You forgot one more soldier, Captain. Mara froze, the sword still at Vey's throat. Reese! Maintenance shaft, 37B. His voice continued from the recorded message that had somehow activated. Behind the tertiary cooling unit. It's not on any official schematics. It leads directly to the control chamber ventilation system. Understanding dawned on Mara. This wasn't Reese speaking from beyond death. It was the final piece of his plan. A recorded message programmed to play when her tracking device reached this specific location. He had anticipated everything, even this confrontation, providing an alternative route when the main approach became compromised. Mara lowered her sword. Her decision made. She struck Vey with the hilt instead, rendering them unconscious rather than dead. "I'm not like them," she whispered to Vei's unconscious form. "And neither are you, deep down." Following Reese's final coordinates, Mara located the hidden maintenance shaft, a narrow passage barely wide enough for a person, concealed behind an access panel that appeared to be part of the wall itself. She squeezed into the tight space, crawling through dusty darkness, guided only by the dim light of her tactical visor. The shaft wound upward through the facility's infrastructure, bypassing multiple security checkpoints. Mara navigated by touch as much as sight, her breathing measured and controlled in the confined space. After what felt like hours, but was likely only 20 minutes, she reached the end of the shaft, a ventilation grate overlooking a vast chamber filled with humming equipment. The rain distribution control room. Through the grate, Mara could see banks of computers, atmospheric modulation devices, and chemical mixing stations. Workers in protective gear moved between stations, monitoring readouts and adjusting settings. But what drew her attention was the central platform, where something, or someone, was integrated into the main control apparatus. Mara carefully removed the grate and dropped silently into the shadows of the massive chamber. Using the equipment banks as cover, she worked her way closer to the central platform, setting timed explosive charges at the structural support points marked in Reese's schematics. As she approached the central platform, the true horror of what she was seeing became clear. What she had initially taken for a machine was in fact a human, or what remained of one, fused into the Nexus control system. Tubes and wires extended from the figure's body, connecting to the surrounding equipment in a grotesque merger of flesh and technology. The human-machine hybrid turned as Mara approached, revealing the face of a middle-aged woman, her eyes enhanced with optical implants that glowed with an unnatural blue light. "A survivor," the woman said, her voice oddly modulated, as if multiple people were speaking simultaneously. "How fascinating. We detected your entry, of course, but I wanted to see who would be brave or foolish enough to come this far." Mara raised her sword. "Who are you?" "I am Dr. Elise Marlowe," the woman replied. "Once the head of atmospheric sciences for the Global Coalition. Now I am the Rain Control Nexus, the perfect union of human judgment and mechanical precision." "You're the one who turned the sky into a weapon," Mara said, horror and disgust evident in her voice. Dr. Marlowe's face showed no emotion, whether from choice or inability. Mara couldn't tell. "I created a system to save humanity from itself. The resistance refused to accept necessary population reduction measures. The acid rain is merciful compared to what unchecked growth would have done to this planet." "Merciful?" Mara's voice rose in disbelief. "You've poisoned the earth, the water, the air itself. Nothing grows anymore. Children are born with deformities from chemical exposure. What kind of mercy is that?" "The mercy of controlled extinction, rather than chaotic collapse," Dr. Marlowe replied, her mechanical eyes focusing on Mara with clinical detachment. "In 2 generations, the human population will be sustainable again. Those who survive will inherit a world that can recover." "You've lost your humanity," Mara said, moving closer, her grip tightening on her sword. "I transcended my humanity," Dr. Marlowe corrected. "Sentiment and short-term thinking are what brought us to the brink. I made the calculations. I implemented the solution." Mara could see now that Dr. Marlowe was more machine than human, her lower body completely integrated into the control system, her internal organs visible through transparent panels, sustained by the facility's technology. "The charges are set," Mara said. "This facility will be destroyed in 15 minutes. The rain control system will fall." For the first time, something like emotion crossed Dr. Marlowe's face. Not fear, but confusion. "You would undo years of careful environmental management for a misguided ideal? The atmosphere is already damaged beyond natural recovery. Without controlled chemical intervention, the weather patterns will become chaotic. You doom the survivors to an even more painful end. Mara hesitated, doubt creeping in. What if Dr. Marlowe was right? What if destroying the facility would make things worse? She thought of Reese, of his certainty that this was the right course of action. As if sensing her uncertainty, Dr. Marlowe continued. I can stop the acid component of the rainfall. Redirect the system to focus on atmospheric stabilization rather than population control. A compromise. Let me live, and I will end the poisoning. Mara studied the human-machine hybrid before her. Was this a desperate attempt at self-preservation, or a genuine offer? Could she trust this woman who had already sacrificed her humanity for her vision? How do I know you'll keep your word? Mara asked. You don't, Dr. Marlowe admitted. But consider the logical alternative. If you destroy this facility entirely, you gamble with the lives of everyone still surviving out there. If you allow me to redirect our efforts, there is at least a possibility of gradual atmospheric recovery. Mara's wristpad crackled again, and to her surprise, Reese's voice emerged once more. The final decision was always yours, Captain. But remember what we learned in the Western Territories. The Earth begins to heal itself the moment the poison stops. Trust the planet that bore us. Trust yourself. This message, unlike the others, didn't sound pre-recorded. It was as if Reese had anticipated this very moment, this very choice, and had prepared words specifically for it. With newfound clarity, Mara made her decision. She raised her sword and, with surgical precision, severed the neural links connecting Dr. Marlowe to the control system. Dr. Marlowe's body convulsed, her enhanced eyes flickering as her connection to the machinery was cut. "What have you done?" she gasped, her voice now entirely human, stripped of its mechanical modulation. "Given you back your humanity," Mara answered, sheathing her sword, "and given the world a chance to heal itself." Alarms began to sound throughout the facility as the control system registered the disconnection of its human component. Workers scattered in panic, evacuating through emergency exits. Mara checked her wrist display. 10 minutes until the charges detonated. Enough time to escape if she moved quickly. "I can't survive without the system," Dr. Marlowe said weakly, her body already beginning to fail without the technological support she had become dependent upon. "I know," Mara replied, genuine sympathy in her voice. "I'm sorry." Dr. Marlowe's expression shifted, a strange peace replacing the confusion. "Perhaps it's better this way. I forgot what it was to be human, to feel." Her breathing became labored. The override codes. Central terminal. You can initiate emergency shutdown. Stop the chemical dispersal immediately. Mara moved to the indicated terminal, finding the shutdown sequence already displayed on the screen. One final gift from Dr. Marlowe. Or perhaps her attempt at redemption. Mara activated the sequence, watching as confirmation messages flashed across the screen. Chemical dispersal terminated. Rain-making systems shutting down. With a final look at Dr. Marlowe, whose eyes were now closed as her life ebbed away, Mara raced for the exit. She navigated the increasingly chaotic facility as emergency protocols activated and personnel fled in all directions. 8 minutes until detonation. Mara found her way to an emergency stairwell, descending rapidly toward the lower levels where she could access the maintenance tunnels again. The facility shuddered around her as systems began to fail, the lights flickering ominously. 6 minutes. She reached the maintenance level, finding the tunnels now deserted, as guards and workers had abandoned their posts. In the distance, she could hear the wail of evacuation sirens, the sound oddly muffled as if the facility itself were dying. 4 minutes. Mara sprinted through the tunnels, following Reese's maps in reverse, heading for the north exit. Her lungs burned with exertion. Her injuries from the fight with Vey, making themselves known as adrenaline, began to fade. 2 minutes. The exit came into view, the reinforced door standing open as part of the emergency evacuation protocol. Beyond it, Mara could see the wasteland, the toxic world that might now have a chance to heal. 1 minute. She burst through the door, not stopping as she put distance between herself and the facility. The acid rain had ceased, whether from Dr. Marlowe's final command or mere coincidence. Mara couldn't tell. Behind her, the first explosion rocked the facility, followed rapidly by others as the charges detonated in sequence. The ground shook beneath her feet as she continued to run, structural supports collapsing, the central tower toppling in slow, catastrophic majesty. A final, massive detonation engulfed the entire complex, the primary chemical storage igniting in a chain reaction that sent a shockwave across the wasteland. The force of it knocked Mara forward, sending her tumbling across the crystallized soil. For several minutes, she lay there, catching her breath, waiting for the ringing in her ears to subside. When she finally rolled onto her back, Mara was greeted by an astonishing sight. The sky was clearing. The perpetual toxic clouds that had blanketed the region for years were dispersing, revealing patches of actual sky, not blue yet, but a lighter gray that held the promise of something better. The acid rain had stopped completely. Mara struggled to her feet, watching in awe as the transformation continued above her. The distant horizon, always hidden behind poisonous mist, now became visible, revealing the silhouette of mountains she had almost forgotten existed. And then, impossibly, it began to rain again, but not the burning, corrosive droplets that had scoured the land for years. This rain was clear, clean, natural. The first normal rainfall in as long as Mara could remember. She removed her protective hood, then her visor, tilting her face upward to feel the cool touch of unpoisoned water on her skin. It felt like redemption, like forgiveness, like hope made tangible. In the distance, figures began to emerge from hidden shelters, resistance members and ordinary survivors alike, stepping cautiously into the open, experiencing the same wonder at the changed sky, the clean rain. Mara made her way toward the canyon where Reese had fallen months earlier. The journey took hours, but she walked steadily, purpose in every step. When she reached the canyon's edge, she unsheathed her sword, the weapon that had seen her through countless battles, and laid it down on a flat rock. Beside it, she placed Reese's jacket, recovered from his quarters after his death, the Squad 7 patch still attached to the shoulder, a memorial, a goodbye. As she stood there, her wristpad crackled one final time. Reese's voice came through, somehow warmer and more present than in any previous recording. "Mission complete, Captain." 3 simple words. Yet they carried the weight of everything they had fought for, everything they had lost, and everything that might now be possible. Mara smiled through tears as she looked out across the canyon, now partially visible through the clearing atmosphere. "Goodbye, Reese," she whispered. "Thank you for saving me, for saving all of us." Then she turned and walked away from the canyon edge, heading toward the gathering survivors in the distance. Above her, the sky continued to clear, revealing the first faint suggestion of blue. Before her, a world poisoned, but not yet dead, ready to begin its long journey toward healing. And somewhere, in the sound of the clean rain falling on recovering soil, Mara thought she could hear Reese's voice one last time, not from recordings or memories, but from whatever lay beyond life itself. "Live for both of us now, Captain."
And she would